I pressed the wrong button. The next video, the last video quit, and then I pressed the black button instead of the red button. I have here a PowerShot SX720 HS, and it's a Canon. Here's our Veterans Memorial, dry mouth. We're up in the newer part of the cemetery. All veterans of all wars. My brother was in the Air Force. He was a postal clerk in Vietnam. Went to the beach one day, and they flew over him with Agent Orange. Why defoliate sand? Maybe they didn't know that much about the stuff back then, but it gave him cancer. And he died at 64. My father was more or less responsible for his own death. He was an avid drinker and smoker. Worked the last half of his life from the 50s to the 60s as a heavy equipment operator. Outdoors in the sun, and you know they didn't use sunscreen back then, so he was always deeply tanned. His mother told my mother that his side of the family was related to Jewish people and Native American people. Now, my grandmother meant that maliciously, trying to convince my mother to drop him. Of course, this was before we existed, and we wouldn't have existed in quite the same way had she followed my grandmother's recommendations. And with Dad being a womanizer, it wasn't one of my mother's better ideas to marry him. Oh, as you can see, the mountains are still fairly bare. Even the short distance that we've come up, it's enough of a distance to set back these wild trees. Maybe another month. I haven't noticed much in the way of below freezing for the past month or more. April was pretty good to us, but I don't know what it's been like on top of the mountain here. Prospect is what they call this. Frost is falling off, so we have ice heaves up here. Cracks develop, perhaps natural cracks in the stone. And the weakest part of the stone collapses as ice forms in it. 4th of July, I'm hoping to get down to New York City for the fireworks. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I got some N95 masks that I'm reserving for just that adventure. I expect I'll be wearing them the entire time I'm down there, except in my hotel room. We are coming around to the top, or apogee, if you will. Seems to be a religious monument, even though it has a flag. I think it's Ukrainian Catholic too. The path we want to leave the cemetery is down by, or rather past that shed, that garage. We're heading downhill now to it. I'm very much disturbed by the Supreme Court, because not only does this upset abortion, and I'm neither for nor against, I think it's everybody's decision to make, but it also upsets all of our other private liberties. I mean, with this decision abolishing privacy as relative to abortion, they could also abolish privacy as relevant to anything else. Who you marry, what you eat, where you go to school, your private thoughts. I mean, it could entirely upset the United States Constitution. It is so out of sync with all other American law and jurisprudence. I expected not to be just political fighting over this and protests and so forth. I could very well conceive that this is going to turn into literal fighting. All right, Pat. Now that is a Eastern Catholic cross, as I understand it. And the Eastern Catholics were state church. Very much like the German model and the former English model. I think those are just garbage pits. As I recall, the path is over here, past the picnic table. Of course, maybe we'll be able to pull through the election, and the Congress with a solid Democratic majority would be able to put the proper fixes in place to save the nation from such things. This is the path. I fell once on this, so I gotta watch my step. But then, at my age, I have to watch my step everywhere. When I was a young man, I just rampaged down the woods, through the woods, down the paths. I'd actually run through them. Can't run anywhere anymore. I would stumble, fall right over myself. Okay. Yeah. Oh. That wasn't easy. Here's another one. I'll go above it, which is also muddy. It just sank down there. And it's slippery. Once we're on the grass, we'll be all right. You might encounter some wet again when we get to the woods path. Some days I can barely make it across my apartment. How much less through the woods? Another bit of damp will go down lower this time. And wouldn't you know, there's another. Got sticker bushes here. Cannot help. There. We're through it. Okay, now it's about time that we see the Emerald City. There's holes in this lawn. So I've heard there's a new strain of COVID, and I'm sure there always will be another strain. That's even more infectious than the past strains. Makes me worry. We'll soon be up at the tippity top. I thought there won't be a ridge rising above us yet, but we're not going up there. hoping to see some deer, at least at a distance. I've never in my life seen a bear, in spite of all the time I've spent in the woods of Pennsylvania. I walked as far south as West Virginia and as far as New Jersey, and then again up here. I've also walked through the woods in Iowa, where I was a preacher for a year. A bad marriage ended my career. Tried hard for about another decade to get back into it, but never worked. Where is the water? It's low after all the rain we've had. It is a bit low. As you can see, it's meant to get up quite a bit. This basin could hold quite a lot. This could serve as a dam, and while that is a little bit lower, it would lead to an outlet over that way, like the way we came, which would send a broad swath of water down toward the highway. But then we have the highway embankment that would contain that. And I've never heard that we've had an issue. The little square of concrete there with a pipe coming out of it is the inlet. And there's the pipe on the other end. So yeah, it's normally at the height of the brown stuff. I don't know what lives in it. I suppose that your normal set of pond life. That's where we came from. I just pointed up. Should keep an eye on my viewer. But yeah, that's what I was looking at over there. Lawnmower up in the golf course. I have been up that power line path that's up there, but that looks to be overgrown as well. I've not been up there in years. Don't plan to. Actually, I came down that way one day. I don't know, maybe I'll get 3 videos out of this. I've done nothing with my real life. Playlist for ages. I've been up the road a little bit. Can't really go very far in that direction. You go into the golf course and I don't wish to trespass. When I was a kid, I could have done that. Indeed, I did do things like that. I would trespass and just walk through. No camera back then, except maybe an Instamatic sometimes. And I was all within 5 miles of my house. And later on in college, I started traveling further on the Appalachian Trail and so forth. Did a little bit of Tuscarora Trail. I once sat down next to a buzzard on Buzzard's Peak in Maryland. He was a bit startled, but he settled down as I settled down. I guess it's pretty clear to him that I was no threat. Sadly, we cannot travel up into these woods. There are no trespassing signs for the woods themselves, as well as no trespassing signs for the woods below. As you can see, the trees are largely bare, which is why I've been kind of iffy about coming up here. I mean, I want to see foliage. I want springtime. I don't want winter without snow. That's no fun. Here we are. You're going to see a bit more damp and muddy now. People are allowed up here during daylight hours. This is not the best way of tackling this, but I like it. I don't do the lower section of it anymore, but I do the top and the middle, and then I exit at the other cemetery. And come down that paved road. Even though that also says no trespassing, I think it's permitted during daylight hours. I don't even know if it's exactly daylight at 6 a.m. I used to get up at 5, and sometimes when I left the house at 6:30, it was still dark. Of course, that would be winter.